Hey guys, welcome to Make Anything. I'm Devin, and today we're gonna look at some 3D prints that suck. That's because they're all related to this shop vacuum. Now, this contraption was built by my dad. It's basically just a standard shop vacuum with a dust collector on top. This thing just catches a lot of the sawdust on the way in so that it doesn't clog up the filter as quickly. And yeah, here in the garage we have 3D printers, we have woodworking tools, so dust management is really important. And to get the most out of this little shop vacuum, I've 3D printed a lot of different functional prints, and some of them are really cool. So that's what we're gonna look at today on Cool Prints. So this hose right here is what does all the sucking from the vacuum. It's the intake, and it's connected to this 2-inch inlet. But we have all kinds of different tools in here, and they have all kinds of different needs. For example, we've got the planer, we've got the table saw, and they all require these 4-inch hoses connected to their dust collection systems. So of course, I 3D printed this adapter that goes from 4 inches to 2 inches. The idea here was that I would use these coils as a kind of thread to screw my adapter onto the hose. But I hadn't considered that that coil twists in the opposite direction of a standard screw, but the hose is flexible enough that it's still held on quite well. Nice. So that's the most obvious way to create functional prints for this vacuum, just adapt to different sizes of hoses. But I've actually been working on some less usual designs. This right here is my first prototype of a little invention I call the Vac Jet. So when it comes to cleaning 3D printers, you don't want to just stick a vacuum up to it because it won't really pick up a lot of the dust. It's just kind of stuck onto the printers by static or whatever. And also you have a pretty good chance of sucking up all kinds of little screws and nuts and bolts that are lying around. So a common thing people will suggest is putting a pantyhose over the vacuum hose, and then you won't suck up any tiny screws. But I wanted to take it a step further, make a whole new tool. It's called the Vac Jet. And basically, this contraption here connects to the hose, but it also has a second little hose that goes inside of the first one, and that's for this thing, an air compressor. So the air compressor connects in there, the hose is here, and this gives us the power of both blowing and sucking. So the air blower from the compressor is awesome for really blasting dust in between cracks and stuff on 3D printers, and then by having the vacuum surrounding that and running at the same time, the idea was that it'll blow off the dust and quickly suck it back in and collect it and keep the environment all nice and dust free. It's pretty noisy, so I won't turn it on right now, but I do have some footage. Check it out. So yeah, this thing kind of works. The grating around the front definitely keeps me from vacuuming up little tiny screws. It does work as a vacuum, although it's not super powerful, and I think that's the main problem. The air blower is super powerful, so it just blasts stuff everywhere. It's perfect, but the suction of the vacuum is not strong enough to capture all that dust that I just blew off. But maybe if I continued this cone so that I can completely like encapsulate things, and have this little environment inside where I blow dust and vacuum it up right away, there might still be some hope for the Vac Jet. Let me know if you guys have any ideas, because right now it doesn't quite work, but I still think it's a nice idea. So that's probably the more unusual creation I've made for this shop vac, but I have one more thing that I just finished last night. I haven't actually tested it yet, and it has to do with the CNC back here. Yes, I just finished putting together my very own dust collection system. And it works a lot like the systems that you can buy directly from Stepcraft. In this case, they made the CNC. They sell dust collection systems, but I have all these 3D printers, and I thought it would be fun to try to make my own. The first thing that I needed to design was some kind of fixture to hold the vacuum hose right next to the end mill of the CNC. So this was my first design, and I made it specifically for this random hose that I had lying around. which happened to work really well because it had those little notches that let you lock it into place. Unfortunately, the part that snaps onto the carriage of the CNC wasn't designed properly, so that didn't really work out, and I went back to the drawing board and came up with this much smaller and simpler design. So the way this works is that it actually uses the router to hold the attachment in place. So it's just sandwiched between the parts like so, and then when we tighten the rotary tool, everything is held in place nice and firmly. And I used the same connection for the vacuum hose, so that still twists into place and locks in there really nicely. That worked great, so I designed the second part that goes underneath the carriage, and this is gonna redirect the vacuum so that it actually sucks from around the end mill. And this part just snaps into place. Beyond that, I designed this in a way where you could attach different ends to the little vacuum system. So I came up with this little clip that clips around there, although this one is a little bit weak. So let's go ahead and fix that. There we go. And now this part snaps on nice and tight. But what's this ring for anyways? Well, the idea is to add some bristles. And I'm just gonna steal them from this brush that I got from an IKEA dustpan. And I'll just clip off one bunch at a time, use a little bit of Starbond super glue, and glue that into place. And I can use a little spritz of activator to make it harden right away. So there we go. I did find it was a bit easier to apply the super glue onto the bristles and then just press those into this ring. Still, this wasn't as easy as I was hoping. It's kind of tricky to get those bristles to go into that little channel, and maybe in the future I would design it differently, but hey, I managed to get the job done. After gluing in a whole round of bristles, I will clip them all to the same length, and then we've got ourselves a little brush attachment. So let's go ahead and connect that to the rest of our dust collection system. And lastly, we just need to feed the hose up through the top of this CNC chamber. So I'll drill a nice 1-inch hole, which is just large enough to fit the hose through. And then up here on the top, I'm gonna attach one more printed part, which is an adapter that connects this hose to the vacuum hose. So we'll just push that down and we've got ourselves a permanent little exhaust vent on the top of this chamber. So here we are. We have all the 3D printed parts, everything fits together, and now I just have to try it out. So let's go ahead and connect the vacuum, put some wood under the CNC and do a quick test cut and see if this thing works. Fingers crossed. Let's go ahead and attach the vacuum hose to the top of this adapter. We'll turn the vacuum on and see if we're getting some suction strength. All right, that's not bad. I mean, it's not a ton of suction, but it's enough to pull up this sawdust, so it just might work. Let's go ahead and home the CNC, and you can see I wired up the electrical cable as well so that nothing gets in the way. And I've put this little piece of compression board down, and I'm just gonna manually cut into it to see how this vacuum system works. So doing a shallow cut here, we can definitely see some sawdust getting sucked up, but there's also some being left behind. So it kind of seemed to half work, but as I continued clearing larger pockets, it actually seemed like more sawdust was getting sucked up, especially as I went deeper with my cuts, because of course that's bringing the vacuum down closer to the board that we're cutting. By the time I finished clearing this pocket, there was actually a surprisingly small amount of sawdust left over. It's not spotless, but I think it's good enough that I can run the CNC and not worry about too much sawdust getting caught in the pockets. Hey, all right, that is not perfect, but not terrible. It's definitely better than having no dust collection system whatsoever, but maybe still not quite as good as just manually holding the vacuum right next to the bit as you're cutting. But let's be real, I can't stand here and watch the CNC and hold the vacuum for hours as it cuts very complex parts. So I'm very happy with this system for what it is. And you know what? All the prints actually work exactly as intended. I think it just comes down to the strength of the shop vacuum that we have. It's not quite strong enough to get all of the dust, but we were left with just a little tiny pile instead of quite a bit of sawdust. I'm actually very happy with it. I'm calling it a success. Anyways, that's it for today's video of cool prints. I think the main takeaway here is that 3D printing can be very useful without a whole ton of design knowledge, but being able to model something as simple as a tube that goes from 2 inches to 4 inches already brings a lot more value out of the other tools that I have in my workshop. So that's one way out of many that 3D printing is just awesome. Well, there you have it. The prints suck, but I hope you enjoyed the video nonetheless. And well, that's it for today. So until next time, I'm Devin, this is Make Anything, and as always, stay inspired.